After such a lengthy closure, the Academy is going to have to recruit not just new cadets, but most of its teaching staff too. And that got us thinking, who would we like to see take on a professor role in Starfleet Academy? We don't have to limit ourselves to the 32nd century either. There are those from previous generations who will probably live that long. Plus, the galaxy's never short of a temporal anomaly or 10. But with all the right permissions and paperwork, a program akin to the Janeway hologram from Star Trek Prodigy could be created for any character the show wanted. We already know the 32nd century uses sophisticated holographic technology. EMH Eli and other holos were serving at Federation headquarters when Discovery arrived. So grab a pad and perhaps pop on a mobile emitter as I suffer through these terrible allergies to give you 10 Star Trek characters that should teach in Starfleet Academy. Number 10. Bana Torres. Bana Torres had a turbulent time in Starfleet Academy, struggling with her emotions and her identity. While others were dodging asteroids in the belt, Bana was dodging punches in the lab. Only you could start a brawl in Astro Theory 101, as Chakotay once quipped. Eventually, after disciplinary hearings, a suspension, and no doubt the sour aftertaste of dating then-fellow cadet Maxwell Burke, Bana quit the Academy, much to the dismay of the track and field coach. Redemption story or no, Bana was always brilliant. She may have fought with Professor Chapman constantly challenging his methods and assumptions, but he thought she was one of the most promising cadets he'd ever taught, even willing to support her should she want to reapply. In fact, a lot of B'Elanna's professors felt the same. As Captain Janeway put it, turns out B'Elanna had more friends at the Academy than she realized. What B'Elanna had failed to see in herself back then, she proved as an exceptional chief engineer on Voyager. She would be perfect, albeit in holographic form, in a teaching role, not least for her skill and expertise, but ultimately because she represents what Starfleet and the Academy are all about. They put the old motto, ad astra per aspera, on the 24th century recruitment posters for a reason. Through hardship, not in spite of it, you can travel to the stars. Number 9. The Captains. To attract the best and brightest upon reopening, the Academy is going to have to bring out the big guns. And we're not talking about isomagnetic disintegrators for cadets to blow themselves up with. What better incentive could there be to join up than the perspective of being taught by holograms of legendary legacy captains? It would certainly attract viewers to the new series as much as it would cadets to San Francisco. Starfleet Academy's main function is to prepare cadets for service in Starfleet through general training and education. However, as part of study there, the institution has always offered a range of undergraduate and graduate degree programs and elective courses. The Holo Captains could provide not only their invaluable insight from years of service, but also give lectures, seminars, and tutorials on subjects across the curriculum. Janeway has the sciences covered, not just temporal mechanics, while Archer knows his Federation history. Kirk is an expert on interspecies relations, Freeman would hold first chair in second contacts, and Picard could lecture in French-ish, and Latin. Then just imagine being taught ancient Bajoran history by Benjamin the Emissary Sisko. As for Pike, we'll let him decide his fate for once. And teach or not, we just want Captain Shaw back full stop. Number 8. Warf. Warf always danced the line between his Klingon heritage, his human upbringing, and the prune juice. But now he seems to have fully embraced the contradictions for a more zen and warrior-like existence. In Star Trek Picard, Captain Warf was a changed man, preferring pacifism to actual combat. What was somewhat unfortunate for Riker in Mortal Peril would be a boon to Academy cadets in any century. Having a renowned tactical and strategic operations officer on the teaching staff is an opportunity not to be missed. With that experience comes wrapped up all the history of the Enterprise D and E, as well as a good chunk of history of Deep Space Nine. Naturally, Worf could also teach Klingon, language, culture, history, and swordsmanship. Then, when the weather control systems have decided on a sunny day, cadets and staff will gather outside behind the Holo Klingon on the grounds of the Presidio for one of his Makbara classes, followed, of course, by a round of chamomile tea. Do you take sugar? Just don't let anyone trample on Holo Boothby's flower beds. Number 7. Miles O'Brien. We know Miles O'Brien took the position of Professor of Engineering at Starfleet Academy by the end of the Dominion War, but we still want to see him in Starfleet Academy the series. Besides, if they've not got, perhaps the most important person in Starfleet history on the faculty, why would any cadet want to show up in the first place? O'Brien would of course be the cool professor. Even in holographic form, he'll still join cadets after class at Quark's franchise down the road for a tankard of beer, chatting away for hours about the time that the real-life Miles and best buddy Julian fought the Battle of the Britain and stormed the Alamo in the Holosuite. Apart from bringing his engineering experience, O'Brien could also run the Academy's model-making and dart society. In fact, O'Brien might well be around in the flesh to pick up his teaching post where he left off a few centuries earlier. As per one of his engineering predecessors, also a transporter expert, he'll probably have jury-rigged his way around the pattern buffer and the small problem of death to arrive in the 32nd century just a few molecules short. With O'Brien on the staff, term time will be punctuated, we trust, by the protests and sit-ins of the Students' League against the unending general harassment and torture of engineers and replicator repair persons, with support from the Lecturers Association and Miles O'Brien Society. Donations of self-sealing stem bolts needed. Number 6. The crew of the USS Discovery. Well, they'll already be there. The majority of the people on this list are, after all, more likely to be buried at Starfleet Academy than to be teaching at it, at least in the flesh, by the 32nd century. Furthermore, in All Is Possible, Lieutenant Sylvia Tilly accepts a teaching post at the newly opened academy, which would seem to suggest a role for the character in the upcoming spin-off series. Perhaps other members of the Discovery crew will join her. In the 32nd century, most classes at the Academy will probably be done over subspace Zoom, so no one aboard the Discovery would even have to leave the ship if they did want to teach. That might be one way to keep the adventures of Discovery going after the series has come to a close. Whether as guest lecturer or in a more permanent position, the Academy would greatly benefit from the knowledge of any and all of the Discovery crew. They are each a link to the 23rd century that the laws against time travel no longer allow. Saru, as just one example, now considered a great elder by his people, would be the obvious choice to teach pre-Federation Kelpian history and, as a polyglot, to head the language department. Number 5. The Doctor and fellow EMH. "You'll probably outlive us all," said Captain Janeway with sardonic wit to the Doctor after the death in his deathbed confession, thankfully, failed to materialize. Janeway wasn't wrong, however. As long as he keeps his subroutines in check and program powered, Voyager's EMH could see the universe through to its demise. Aside from embarrassing himself in front of his colleagues, the Doctor was a pre-programmed and programmable wealth of knowledge on both medicine and command that would make him perfect for a role in Starfleet Academy. In addition to that, he could teach Starship Voyager, a history, and creative writing, alongside a holographic recreation of famously more lowbrow holonovelist Tom Paris. Reawakened from his backup module slumber only about a century prior to the events of Star Trek Discovery's 3rd and 4th seasons, the Curian Museum version of the Voyager EMH is no doubt also still out there somewhere. This duplicate Doctor eventually left the planet with a longing for home, and it is distinctly possible he bumped into Starfleet and the Federation at some point on his travels. Perhaps he's even teamed up with his other self to run Starfleet Medical. Finally, there's the matter of what happened to the countless other EMH Mark 1s, and 2s and 3s and 4s during the struggle for holographic rights. With holograms and EMHs back in service in the 32nd century, Star Trek Starfleet Academy could and should address the injustices done to all their 24th century predecessors. Number 4. Louis Zimmerman. If they've already got Robert Picardo on board, they should probably make the most of him. Plus, what could be better than having the father of modern holography teach the course in holography, as the holographic version of himself? In the 24th century, Louis Zimmerman's failed attempt at posterity was to plaster his face across the dilithium mines of the galaxy. It only seems fair that he gets some chance at redemption in the 32nd century, along with his EMHs. We've all had the grumpy professor whose mission it is to appear as disinterested as possible in their job, even going out of their way to misremember your name. Scratch the surface, however, and you'll find that the outwardly misanthropic are often the most caring and almost always the best teachers. If cadets can get past the talking iguana and undercover insect, they will no doubt love Zimmerman's classes. Zimmerman's fondness for his own likeness extended to the Jupiter Station diagnostic program. Voyager's version was merged with the Doctor in the Swarm, but presumably there was a diagnostic program for every EMH Mark I. If any remain from that time, that will save having to recreate Zimmerman on spec. Number 3. Becket Mariner and Bradward Boimler. We've already witnessed this pair of then ensigns fall out of a portal back in time to meet up with the presently aged old scientists of the so-named TOS era. There's no reason why they couldn't, one or both, stumble forward from the 24th to the 32nd century. In fact, with the fabulous Star Trek encyclopedic Tawny Newsome at the writing team for the Star Trek Starfleet Academy, the odds are highly favorable that we'll get another epic crossover. Bradward Brad Boimler doesn't seem like the obvious choice for teacher at Starfleet's famed institution. After all, at the time we met him in Star Trek Lower Decks, he was barely out of the Academy himself. He is, however, Starfleet through and through, devoutly dedicated to its ethos and its history. Becket Mariner, on the other hand, despite a long-time lack of self-confidence and resistance to promotion for reasons that are personal to her, already had a wealth and range of experience in Starfleet before joining the Cerritos. Her gentle guidance and advice to a young Ensign Uhura aboard the Enterprise showed that she is made to be a teacher. Classes with both characters would definitely be animated and chaotic, and in Boimler's case, accidentally explosive. Nonetheless, cadets would flock to see them for however long the duo could remain in the 32nd century. Number 2. Dax. It's not known just how long a Trill symbiont, or short fat snake as the Star Trek Deep Space Nine series Bible also puts it, can live. It's certainly in the range of hundreds of years through several hosts. The Dax symbiont was born in 2018, meaning it would be approaching its 1200th birthday by the time of any appearance in Star Trek Starfleet Academy. We know thanks to Discovery that it's a bit of a stretch, but not impossible for a symbiont to live that long. The wealth of knowledge and experience that Dax could bring to a teaching role would be inestimable. We last saw Dax, canonically speaking, in 2375. By that time, Ezri was the symbiont's 9th host. We also know from Trials and Tribulations that Emily Dax once met Leonard McCoy on Earth prior to him becoming a doctor. Skip back to 2168 and we're at the year of Dax's joining to first host Leela. If we assume the Trill homeworld was aware of galactic affairs at this point, that means Dax and the host have been witness to pretty much all of Federation history. That should qualify them to at least be the commandant, probably the superintendent of the entire academy. Number 1. Pelia. It's hard to keep track of the yearly minutiae when you've been around for centuries. Having said that, the gloriously no-nonsense, practically immortal Pelia seems to have little difficulty keeping up with the times. You don't hold on to that many artifacts if you've not got a long-term plan. As a lanthanite, a new species introduced in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Pelia has indeed lived a great number of years. How many years is yet to be specified. In Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, Pelia claimed to have been a contemporary of Pythagoras as he made maths up. That would mean being on Earth between 570 and 495 BC. In the same episode, aside from her inbuilt longevity and innate awesomeness, Pelia is perfect for the job because she's already had previous teaching experience at the Academy. As far as we know, she was an instructor of engineering with a focus on warp core breaches as well as starship maintenance from at least early 23rd century until, thanks in good part to Spock's hijacking of the Enterprise, she switched things up a bit in 2259. Amongst Pelia's students were some of Starfleet's future brightest, including then cadets Una Chin Riley and Montgomery Scott. If any 32nd century prodigy is expecting good grades just because they're brilliant, however, they should think again. Pelia typically gave out some of the worst marks to her best students. And those have been 10 Star Trek characters that we want to see teach in Starfleet Academy. If you can think of any we missed, which I'm sure there's tons, then let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you like our channel, then go ahead and subscribe. That way you never miss a new upload. You can also find us on social media at TrekCulture on Twitter and Blue Sky, and at TrekCultureYT on Instagram. You can also find me across various social medias under the handle TrekkyBree. And with all that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and don't forget to live long and prosper.